Well, Saul Kavonic is one of Australia's most respected energy analysts. He's advised governments and the United Nations on energy policy and has also worked in venture capital and directly for Australia's biggest energy company, Woodside. But Saul Kavonic, it seems, has had enough. In the Australian newspaper today, he calls for Resources Minister Madeleine King to quit. He says she's the least effective resources minister in a generation. His telling quote is this: Labor no longer welcomes investment in our resources sector. They want to trade our best economic player overseas in return for the Greens, who can't win at anything except complaining. Saul Kavonic, the head of energy research at MST Marquee, joins me now. Saul, many thanks for your time. This is quite an outburst, I should say. You're going to make no friends in government. That's a big call on the resources minister. But effectively, you say that the Labor Party has rolled over and had its tummy tickled by the Greens, and so that therefore compromises energy development in Australia.
It's much more than our energy security at stake here. This is our entire resources sector, which is the economic engine of our economy, our standard of living, and the reason we're the lucky country. Just as an example, in the last year where the data was available, just taxes being paid by our resource sector, over $90 billion in 1 year, that covers our entire defence budget and education budget combined. I don't know where we're supposed to get that money to cover our defence and education if our resources sector is to be wound down, which is where Labor's policies are taking us. It's $10,000 per Australian family, right? And in this cost of living situation we're facing, Australian families don't have an extra $10,000 lying around to pay for these things if we're going to kill the golden goose of our resources sector. And unfortunately, we've seen a multi-pronged assault since 2022. Across the board on our resources sector. We're talking about approvals that used to take 2 months are now taking 2 years, and in some cases 4 years or 6 years to get done. Taxes have been hiked on the sector. We've seen green litigation explode, not only not stopped by the Labor Party, but actively funded by the Labor Party in some instances. We're seeing approvals delayed or cancelled for purely political reasons to play towards particular factions within the Labor Party, particularly by Tanya Plibersek. The EPPC Act reforms have been hijacked by activists just designed to now destroy the ability to actually build any projects. It's not actually about protecting the environment anymore, which of course they should have, that's a perfectly fine thing to be doing. And that's just, a small sample of some of the things that have happened over the last 2.5 years, to the point where investment is not seen as welcome by industry anymore in Australia. And we are setting ourselves on a course to lose the best and most strongest part of our economy, which supports tens and even hundreds of thousands of rural blue-collar jobs across our country. Whole towns are dependent on this. And we need to change tack here, put us back on a course where we go back to what's built Australia up to be so successful over the last 5 to 6 decades, rebuild our hard-earned reputation as a place to invest, and see that prosperity return again.
OK, so then if you look at the polls right now, the most likely outcome of the next election is going to be a Greens-Labor alliance, because the Labor Party's like to lose seats and not be able to govern in its own right. What happens? Because that would seem to be a lurch to the left, and therefore many of these projects you're talking about become even more compromised, especially the energy projects such as gas projects.
The idea of Greens minority government is truly scary from that economic standpoint and from the standpoint of our resources industry. And just to be clear, the Labor Party has not always been this way. A more right-wing Labor government, a Labor government under Bill Shorten, we wouldn't find ourselves in the situation we're in here. It's because we've seen the left flank of that party take control and really desert the blue-collar base that was the foundation, indeed the founder of the Labor Party, which was founded by the Australian Workers' Union those many years ago. The prospect of Greens minority essentially is going to be diabolical. I think we should expect not to see a single major project approved for the entire term of that government. That's going to compromise energy security, particularly in the east coast of Australia. We've already had a number of near misses. We're already seeing manufacturing plants, energy-intensive manufacturing plants shutting down. Ross, you would have seen just a few weeks ago, one of the major glass manufacturers. This is high-tech manufacturing that we want to be encouraging in this country. Shut down. You can see energy costs and gas costs are a big driver behind that. Blue-collar jobs are gone. And for every headline where you see jobs being lost in manufacturing, There's 100 other smaller, particularly family-run businesses, which just die in silence and don't make the headlines. And we're seeing this shedding of manufacturing capability, this shedding of the middle class that's supporting it. And it's because we've lost that competitive advantage we've had in energy and resources for so many decades, and now it's becoming a disadvantage.
So I don't have very much time, just only a couple of seconds, but the reality is also big businesses like BHP, like Woodside, will invest more money overseas as a result.
That decision's been made. You're seeing all the major investors who've invested behind Australia's prosperity for the last 50 years are now moving to invest elsewhere, and particularly in North America.
Yes.
And I just highlight, Ross, Madeleine King, she says all the right things, right? Her positions are fine. The problem is she's a completely ineffectual minister. She's been ignored and rolled by her own party again and again. We need to see Labor take resources seriously, appoint a minister who actually has some clout within the Labor Party to stand up and have a voice for the sector there.
And I've got to leave it there. Saul Kavonic, many thanks for your time.